What if the child you lost years ago suddenly returned? Same name, same story, a little older, a little different, but alive. For one grieving family in Texas, that miracle happened. Their son, Nicholas Barclay, vanished at age 13. Then, 3 years later, out of nowhere, he came back. But the boy who returned wasn't Nicholas. He was a 23-year-old Frenchman named Frédéric Bourdin, a master of deception, a thief of identities, and a man who fooled governments, families, and the media not once but dozens of times. This is the true story of the chameleon who lived 100 lives and the lie that broke a family forever. This is how one man fooled the entire nation with a fake identity, long before he became a headline, before the lies, the disguises, and the international manhunt. Frédéric Bourdin was just a lonely boy with no place to belong. Born in 1974 in the small French town of Nanterre, Frédéric was the child of a teenage mother. His father? A married man who wanted nothing to do with him. He was passed from one relative to another, in and out of shelters, always looking for something that felt like family. But he didn't find love. He found rejection, neglect, silence. So he made a choice. If he couldn't have a family of his own, he would become someone else's child. By his teens, Frédéric was already slipping into new identities, pretending to be an orphan, a runaway, a refugee. And it worked, again and again. He didn't just lie. He studied. He mimicked accents, copied mannerisms, memorized tragic stories. He wasn't just playing a part. He became the role. But it was never enough. Because as soon as someone got too close, the mask would crack, and he'd vanish, only to become someone new. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about crime. It was about belonging, about being loved, even if only for a little while. By the time he was 20, Frédéric Bourdin had already worn dozens of faces. He wasn't just hiding. He was hunting for the perfect role. Across Europe, he posed as an abused teenager in shelters, orphanages, even police stations. He invented stories of trauma, war, abandonment, always just believable enough to gain sympathy, shelter, and protection. He became fluent in lies and in pain. He mimicked broken souls so convincingly people didn't question they cared. In one case, he claimed to be a child refugee from war-torn Algeria. In another, a mute orphan from Bosnia. He invented entire languages, fake accents. He changed his posture, his gaze, even the way he breathed. But behind each story was the same boy, Frédéric, testing the boundaries of belief, desperate for connection, and increasingly skilled at manipulation. By 1997, he had assumed over 30 identities. His lies were growing bolder, riskier, and soon they would take him across the ocean into the heart of a grieving American family, and into the role that would make him infamous. Nicholas Barclay was 13 years old when he vanished from San Antonio, Texas. June 13, 1994. Just a boy walking home from playing basketball. Then gone. His family searched. His mother cried on the evening news. His older sister handed out flyers. The police launched an investigation, but no trace was found. 3 years later, a call came in from Spain. A young man had been found wandering the streets of Linares, claiming to be a kidnapped American boy who had escaped from a child sex trafficking ring. His name? Nicholas Barclay. It was Bourdin, 23 years old. French, dark hair, brown eyes. Nicholas had been a fair-haired, blue-eyed teenager. But somehow the lie worked. He spoke English with a heavy accent. He refused to remove his hat. He kept his face partially hidden. He claimed he'd been tortured, that his captors changed his appearance, that he was traumatized and afraid. Shockingly, the U.S. Embassy issued emergency papers, and Nicholas Barclay, or rather, Frédéric Bourdin, was flown to America. Nicholas's family met him at the airport. His mother, his sister, they wept. They embraced him. They welcomed him home. Did they believe it was really him? Or did they simply want to believe? Was it grief, hope, or something darker? Bourdin moved in with the Barclays. He went to school, gave interviews, reclaimed a life that was never his, all while cameras rolled and the lie deepened. For 5 months, Frédéric Bourdin lived as Nicholas Barclay, until the cracks began to show. At first, no one dared to question the miracle. A missing boy had returned. He was changed, yes, older, darker, distant, but trauma could explain anything, couldn't it? But not everyone believed. Nicholas's classmates were confused. Teachers noticed strange behaviors. He didn't recognize childhood friends. He didn't remember his own locker. He wore sunglasses indoors, covered his face in photographs, claimed sensitivity to light, to noise, to memories. But behind the excuses, something felt wrong. Then came Charlie Parker, a private investigator hired by a local news outlet. He wasn't convinced. Something in the boy's face didn't match the old photos. He looked closer. Ears, bone structure, eye color. Nicholas had blue eyes. Bourdin's were brown. No amount of trauma could explain that. Parker confronted the family. But instead of panic, there was silence. Why weren't they alarmed? Was it denial? Fear? Or was there something the family didn't want uncovered? Then the FBI stepped in. They ordered fingerprint analysis, DNA testing. Within days, the truth was undeniable. The boy in Texas was not Nicholas Barclay. He was Frédéric Bourdin, a 23-year-old French national who had impersonated dozens of children across Europe. He was arrested in September 1997. The lie had collapsed, but what it revealed was even more disturbing than the impersonation itself. When a mask came off, Frédéric Bourdin didn't run. He didn't fight. He simply confessed. He admitted it all: the fake identity, the lies, the manipulation, the American dream that wasn't his. It had been his most dangerous performance yet, and it was over. He was sentenced to 6 years in a U.S. federal prison. But even behind bars, he showed no remorse. In his own words, he blamed the family, the system, the world that never gave him a place to belong. And disturbingly, he wasn't wrong. There were still unanswered questions about the Barclay family. Why didn't they notice the differences? Why did they ignore the signs? Some even began to wonder, was it possible they knew Nicholas would never return? Nicholas Barclay remains missing to this day. His case is unsolved, and Frédéric Bourdin, whether intentionally or not, only deepened the mystery of his disappearance. After his release, Bourdin became a media sensation. Interviews, documentaries, a character studied by psychologists, journalists, and filmmakers. Some saw him as a monster, others as a tragic figure, lost in his own delusions. He claimed to change, claimed to stop. But even after prison, he impersonated more children, slipping into shelters, playing the role of the forgotten. So who is Frédéric Bourdin? A manipulative sociopath? A genius con artist? Or just a broken boy who never grew up? Frédéric Bourdin wasn't stealing money. He wasn't after fame. He was stealing something far more fragile: identities, families, affection, the very things he never had. He pretended to be lost boys because he himself had been lost for so long. And in a world that didn't notice him, he discovered the power of becoming someone people wanted to see. But behind every impersonation, there was a real child missing, a real family grieving, a truth obscured by fiction. And for Nicholas, the story never ended. His face still haunts missing persons reports. His mother has passed away. His sister faded from the public eye. And the boy himself remains a ghost. Frédéric Bourdin lived hundreds of lives, but left hundreds of questions behind. He played the victim, and in doing so, victimized others. Was it survival? Or was it cruelty disguised as desperation? Today, he lives quietly in France. A father now, still under the shadow of the name, the chameleon. In the end, it's a story not just about deception, but about the human hunger to believe, even when the truth is staring us in the face.